The auditorium fell completely silent. Not the polite silence of an audience waiting. Not the nervous hush before a performance. This was something else entirely. This was the silence of 4,000 people holding their breath at the exact same moment, because something was happening on that stage that no one had prepared for. Something that would never be forgotten. It started on an ordinary Tuesday in Pasadena, California. The America's Got Talent production team had seen everything. Magicians. Opera singers. Ventriloquists. Fire breathers. 12-year-old piano prodigies. They thought nothing could surprise them anymore. They were wrong. A man walked out from behind the curtain. He was not young. He moved slowly, carefully, the way a person moves when they have carried a long life on their shoulders. His hair was silver. His suit was simple. His shoes were polished to a quiet dignity. He was 76 years old, and he had flown 22 hours from the Philippines just to stand on this stage. His name was Jose Marichan. And most people in that audience had never heard of him. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair and studied the man the way he always does, with that cool, calculating stare that has ended 1,000 dreams and launched 100 careers. He clicked his pen twice. He said nothing. He was already preparing the polite dismissal in his mind. He had no idea what was coming. Jose Marichan adjusted the microphone. He looked out at the crowd. And for one long, trembling moment, he simply looked, as if he was drinking in the sight of something he had waited his entire life to see. His eyes glistened. He smiled a small, private smile. Then he began to sing. The first note hit the room like a wave. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. There were no dancers, no smoke machines, no dramatic key changes. There was only a voice. A voice that had somehow survived 7 decades of living, of loving and losing and hoping and failing and rising again, and carried every single one of those years inside it. A voice that sounded like Sunday mornings and old photographs and the smell of your grandmother's kitchen. Simon Cowell's pen stopped moving. The audience went rigid. Phones lowered. Conversations died. A woman in the 4th row pressed her hand to her chest as if she was checking that her heart was still beating. A man near the back closed his eyes and tilted his face toward the ceiling. Jose Marichan kept singing. What almost no one in that auditorium knew, what Simon Cowell had no way of knowing, was that this man was already a legend. In the Philippines, Jose Marichan is not a singer. He is a season. Every December, for 40 years, his voice has poured out of every speaker in every mall, every church, every home across 7,000 islands. His Christmas songs are not songs. They are memories. They are the sound of childhood itself. He had never needed America to validate him. He had an entire nation's heart. But he had come here anyway. For something else entirely. He had come for his family. His children, who had grown up watching him perform. His grandchildren, who had only heard the stories. He had come because at 76, a man begins to understand that some doors do not stay open forever. He had come because there was still one stage he had never stood on. And he was standing on it now. By the second verse, something was happening in the crowd that the cameras almost couldn't capture fast enough. People were crying. Not sniffling. Not dabbing politely at their eyes. Crying, the way people cry when a piece of music reaches somewhere so deep inside them that they cannot explain why it hurts. The way people cry when they suddenly remember someone they miss. The way people cry when something beautiful reminds them that life is short and love is real and time moves faster than any of us are ready for. A grandmother in the audience turned to her granddaughter and grabbed her hand. 2 strangers looked at each other and had no words. And then the cameras cut to Simon Cowell. What they caught would be replayed millions of times. Simon Cowell, the man who has told more people no than almost anyone in television history. The man who has sat unmoved through performances that made entire audiences sob. The man whose stone face has become its own cultural landmark, that man was not stone anymore. His jaw was tight. His eyes were wet. He looked away from the stage for 1 second, then looked back, as if he could not afford to miss a single note. His hand came up and pressed against his mouth. He was trying not to fall apart in front of 40 million viewers. He was failing. Jose Marichan did not see any of this. His eyes were closed now. He was somewhere else entirely, somewhere inside the music, inside the decades, inside every hotel room and empty stage and long flight home that had brought him to this exact moment on this exact night. He hit the final note. He held it. The sound filled the room the way light fills a cathedral, slowly, completely, from floor to ceiling, touching every dark corner. And then it was over. For 2 full seconds, there was absolute silence. Then the auditorium detonated. Every single person in the building was on their feet before the echo had even faded. The roar was physical. It had weight. It had heat. 4,000 people screaming and crying and clapping and grabbing the people next to them because they needed to share what they had just felt with another human being. Jose Marichan stood at the microphone with his eyes still closed. He stood there for a moment that seemed to exist outside of time. Then he opened his eyes, and the look on his face, the look of a man who has waited 76 years for exactly this moment, broke every heart in the building all over again. Howie Mandel was the first judge to speak. He couldn't. He opened his mouth and nothing came out. He tried again. I don't know how to explain what just happened, he finally managed. But I felt it in every part of my body. Sofia Vergara had tears streaming openly down her face. She pressed both hands to her heart. You are a treasure, she said. A real treasure. I don't think anyone in this room is ever going to forget tonight. Heidi Klum leaned forward. How are you real, she whispered. How is this real? But everyone was waiting for Simon. Simon Cowell sat in his chair for a long moment. He was not performing. He was not building suspense for television. He was genuinely trying to collect himself. He rubbed the back of his neck. He looked down at the table. He looked back up at the stage. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. I've been doing this show for a very long time, he said. And I have sat in this chair and heard thousands and thousands of people sing. And I have learned to protect myself from being moved. I have learned to stay behind a wall. He paused. You just demolished that wall. The audience erupted again. But Simon wasn't finished. You didn't come here to impress us, he said. You didn't come here because you needed us. I could feel that from the moment you walked out. You came here to give us something. And what you gave us tonight, I don't think any of us were ready for it. He looked directly at Jose Marichan. You are, without question, one of the greatest artists I have ever heard in my life. Jose Marichan smiled. That same small, private smile from the beginning. And he said, very quietly, thank you. I have been waiting a long time to hear that from this stage. For judges pressed their buttons. For giant yes signs lit up the board. But the moment had already happened long before that. The moment had happened in the second verse, when a man's 76-year-old voice reached into the chests of 4,000 strangers and reminded them of everything they had ever loved and everyone they had ever missed. That is what music is for. That is what Jose Marichan came to America to prove. And he proved it in 4 minutes and 22 seconds. Some things in this world do not need to be explained. They only need to be felt. Tonight, in Pasadena, California, on a stage made of lights and dreams and the accumulated hope of 1,000 auditions, an old man from the Philippines sang a song. And the world stopped turning for just a moment. And everyone remembered why we are alive.